Welcome everyone to the Rollup Supply Chain panel. Thanks so much, Info Gardens, for organizing this and having us. We have a great lineup to discuss one of the biggest questions in the Rollup ecosystem today. I'm Cami Russo, the founder of The Defiant, where you can find the best information about DeFi and Web3. I'll let each panelist briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll get to the discussion.
Great. Thanks, Camilla. My name is Kevin. I'm the founder and CEO of Goldsky. We are the largest data indexing platform in crypto. We power over 1,000 customers today, and we help app builders build their apps at the end of the day.
Hey, my name is Kyle. I lead the business team at Avail, where we're building many different things, but a data availability solution for modular chains to have infinite block space, infinite and cheap block space. Avail Nexus to enable end users from any chain to interact with the dApp without a bridging experience. We're building a multi-token staking model. We're getting into tokenization, so a lot of different things. Before this, I led business at the Graph for a few years. Before that, Wall Street. Before that, military.
Hi, Alessandro here, like a product lead for Dune on data integration. Dune, we offer like analytics and dev tools for any project, wallet. So excited to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Roy Grayman, lead product manager for our Rollups as a service product here at QuickNode. QuickNode is a blockchain infrastructure provider. We power some of the largest applications in the space, Uniswap, Paxos, as well as additional like Web2 providers like LG. And recently, over the last couple of years, we've been diversifying more into Rollups as a service, as well as working on additional blockchain-based infra requirement needs.
Awesome. Okay, so Rollups promise a new era of a more modular type of design. But as the ecosystem has matured, that premise is being challenged. This is an open question for the panel. Do you think that Rollups are really choosing the specific setup that's best suited for them, or are they just going kind of the easy route and picking kind of a bundle package? Kevin, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to modularity, it's good to have a lot of options. I think one thing that we care a lot about is making sure that our data is in open format so people can use whatever database that they want. I think sometimes bundles can be helpful for people who may not know exactly all the different pieces that they want. But look, ultimately, the goal is not to make like this perfect modular system for a lot of these businesses and companies. The goal has always been, how do we ship a product to our users faster more than anything, right? So I'm not necessarily against modularity. I think having these starter packages is fine. I think the place where we are right now with a lot of the infra that we already have is quite good already. I don't think we need to kind of maximize modularity, though. I think that's kind of an anti-goal.
And I'd say that modularity is great because it's all experimentation, right? We're decoupling execution. We're trying different data availability layers, and it's also nascent, just like crypto has been for a long time. There's a lot of battle tested stuff now, but it's still not even close to final form. So this experimentation is awesome. Though, like with RAS providers or even things that I'm working with, we recommend. And like you said, a lot of people don't know exactly what they need, what they want. They don't know the commercial terms. They don't know the technology as well. They just want to build their product. And so I think an opinionated stack as a starter package of sorts is great. It gets people to market faster. But what I want to see is people remain open-minded and not just base it off of grants or go to market. They actually optimize for technology in the long term, because right now we're just experimenting. When it gets to full-fledged adoption and you need the best tech, it's going to be a bottleneck. And if people don't remain open-minded and they become maxis, then they're going to be left behind, I think.
Sorry. Are you implying that previous relationships like investments, grants play a bigger role in the selection of the stack that each chain is choosing rather than the tech?
And I would go further than that to answer yes. that is the way the crypto ecosystem builds at large, right? People don't go and build on OP Stack because they want to. If they're a massive brand, if they can command a larger grant, if they can command better go-to-market terms and so on. That's not just crypto. That's literally everything in every industry, especially tech, finance, it doesn't matter. So I don't think it's any different here. But what's cool is we move so fucking fast. We break things and we see new technology come out that we didn't have 6 months ago. And if you keep an open mind, you test it out, then you'll continually have the best stack and stay ahead, but still have those relationships and long-term benefits that from the go-to-market decisions early on.
I believe that there is no ideal option out yet, and where there is a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances to build and compose, and we are still figuring out what's the optimal way, if it will ever exist one, and it's all about trade-offs. So I think that inherently Rollup, whether it chooses a more modularity or goes for a bundle, already makes the choice on what is optimal for them, and maybe some technical parameters are not essential, and they want to focus more on the user base, on the ecosystem, on the product, and that's what works for them. Whether instead other apps wants to maybe have a more sovereignty on their blockchain, and that's why they maybe choose other options. So I think it will be an interesting theme for the next few months and years here in crypto. So excited to see what's gonna come from this.
Yeah, just to kind of touch down what Kyle was mentioning is, as a Rollups as a service provider, when we're talking to different chain operators, they don't always necessarily know exactly what configuration they're looking for. They're coming to us as kind of advisors. Hey, I have this particular use case. These are kind of the requirements I'm looking for, whether it be in gaming or in payments, social, and they're kind of asking us our opinions. I think as we're continuing to evolve in the DeFi space, the choices are only going to get larger, albeit more mature. And so when you're working with providers like QuickNode or other RAS providers, you're really, it's a great thing to actually leverage kind of their knowledge and their upkeep on the space and what things are growing. Like Kyle and I are probably talking to each other once a week over Telegram on kind of new advancements they're working on. We're working together on a project right now. But there's a lot in the space, and I think it really comes down to helping out these different chains with what service is the best for them, rather than just suggesting to them exact configurations where they don't have any control over how to alter or change it.
I'll go for specific questions for the panelists, starting with Kyle. So as a DA layer provider, how is neutrality maintained or compromised in a space where increasingly, people are favoring a more vertically integrated stack?
So clarification on the question, how do you get neutrality when people, what do you mean by vertically integrated in the sense of a rollup?
Yeah, no, kind of in kind of the bundle, the bundle by default
I see.
aspect.
Yeah. Neutrality means you base it off of the most objective decision possible. I think every decision from dApps launching on different chains, like I was mentioning, is all a subjective decision, and it depends on how good the BD teams are, how good the incentives are, and most importantly, I'm seeing not even grants, how much you pay attention to people, because some people get too big for their britches and they don't pay attention to people, even smaller ones, and that gets around, and people don't like working with people that don't pay attention. They want high touch, high feel, they want to work with their friends. So neutrality is not something I think that anyone's doing. They're all wanting to work with their friends, they're wanting to work with the best technology, but that's not always the lead decision. Just like a lot of people want decentralization in Web3, but not many people are working in a decentralized way in Web3. So it's hard to answer your question because I don't think there's full neutrality. But I do think all this experimentation, like the SVM or the VM wars, which I love, all the different technologies, all the interop, all the dataability stuff, all the indexing stuff, it's awesome to see the competition, because then one or two solutions will end up in the end where everyone else is dead. And then we'll see some neutrality because the winners will have won with not only the best BD, go-to-market, everything, but also the best tech. And that's what's good about building in crypto, which is really important to me. We build open source so we can all learn from each other, right? You use subgraphs via the Graphs MIT licensing, and it was great. Like, you guys did an incredible job. You synced faster in a lot of ways, and that's good. It's good for the graph. It's good for everyone. So I don't think we're going to see full neutrality yet, and that's because we're all experimenting on stuff that's only been around a few years, and we have to work on token, right? Token's a separate product altogether, and that depends on how much treasury someone has, longevity, and so on.
By the way, if anyone wants to add to any of the other panelists' questions, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your takes on neutrality.
I think from Dune side, we are more takers rather than makers. When I talk to blockchains to integrate into Dune, we work with them, we understand what's stuck and what data, what they're trying to get out of Dune, and of course there are certain stacks and certain bundles where we have optimized for, and our integration is very straightforward, and others where we have to do a bit more of scoping and work, but ultimately, yeah, it's just we want to give what's better for our users and the best experience for the blockchain. So,
Rory, what are you seeing are the priorities for rollups when deciding what RPC providers to go with?
What are they focused on with RPC providers or like rollups, for example?
No, like what do rollups prioritize? Like what are they looking for?
I think there's a combination of things that like some of the chain operators who are wanting to deploy rollups are looking for. Speed is sometimes the case. Partnerships is a huge thing, right? We have over 700,000 developers on the QuickNode platform. So when they deploy either RPC or a chain through QuickNode, they're inheriting the user base of every developer that we have. And there's partners that rely on just QuickNode as their RPC or use QuickNode as their primary RPC. But it's also, there's the partnerships aspect of it. There's the speed. If when we work with these chains, we don't look at it as like kind of this transactional experience. We don't want to just deploy a chain for them and then just kind of send them on their way. We're looking at it as more of a partnership. So there are some times where like speed might be something that they're specifically looking for, but we kind of pull back a second and kind of ask those questions like, okay, are you actually ready to deploy a rollup now? Is the technology ready? Do you have the user engagement? Do you have the community? Do you have the funds to be able to run the chain long term? And so we're kind of really looking at that as more of a partnership when working with chains. Interoperability is also a big thing that they're looking for. So we have great partnerships with different bridge, different cross-chain messaging protocols. And so what we try to do is we try to set them up with the partnerships that make sense the most for their chain, and help them be successful as much as possible once they get to the deployment stage and then beyond.
And similar question to you, Kevin. What are you seeing are the the main considerations that rollups have in terms of what they're looking for in their data provider?
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty easy. I think it's just generally boils down to reliability and latency. That's the main thing. I mean, I've actually been. I feel like I really started getting into crypto probably 2017. Before that, I was doing more like Web 2, big tech stuff. And one of the most shocking realizations coming to crypto was that a lot of our infra actually kind of sucks. It's gotten better over the past 5, 8 years, but what we take for granted is kind of insane, right? When you talk about companies outside of crypto, when you talk about SLA's uptime, they usually expect like 3 nines, 4 nines, right? I remember when we first started Goldsky, I remember hearing about companies that could barely manage 1 9. And I was like, how are you dropping every 1 out of 10 requests, right? This is something quite crazy like that. So yeah, I think when people talk about like data, the data that they pull from us, they want to know that it's extremely reliable, it's correct, it's low latency. And for certain applications, you just can't afford to be wrong, right? Like if you're making trades, for example, you just cannot have raw numbers for those trades.
So right now, do you think we're in a phase of experimentation where we'll see more options for this kind of composable landscape, or do you think that we're starting to see more consolidation in the different options to where it's more of like a winner take all market in each level of the stack?
I think there's more room to grow the pie for sure. I think crypto is obviously growing this year. There's going to be more institutional demand. At the same time, yeah, I feel like sometimes we're fighting over a smaller pie instead of looking at the larger one. I think data itself is like a pretty vast, broad space. Like there's RPCs, there's like analytics, there's like indexing, there's like insights or whatever beyond that. So sometimes, yeah, when I look at the landscape, I do see that sometimes companies kind of rub up against the edges of kind of like the layers next to them. But I think it's a little bit short-sighted. Again, I think the space is pretty broad. If it's not crypto native companies like all of us that are going to figure it out and ultimately, grow and make a lot of money, it's going to be Web2 companies that come in and basically eat our pie.
And on that, I think we're just at the beginning. I think we're going to see so much more, especially in the VM wars. If you think of what created GraphQL, it was Facebook, and they open sourced it in 2015, and that's what enabled the graph to create subgraphs. Same thing with MoveVM, created by Facebook through the Libra stuff, and then that went to shit. But in the end, Move came out, and it's incredibly fast. It's super fast, very high performant, and that's cool. Like some stuff comes from Web 2. I love stuff coming from Web 3 because it's more philosophical line with what we're trying to do. But even then, that's the power of being something being open sourced. You take it, you make it better, you align it with Web 3 regardless. So you take good ideas from everywhere, and I think we're just starting to see what all the different options. Eventually, it'll be too much, it'll be too congested, and a lot of things will die off, but I don't think we're even close to there yet. And that's because, look at all the stacks. The Optimistics, Orbit, OP, you have ZK with Starkware, and then Polygon, and now they're getting to OP, Geth, and all these different things, right? And those aren't even close to as performant as they need to be. And so we need to see more experimentation because it's still expensive. ZK, even I'm a ZK Maxi, I think it's the future. It's still too slow, too expensive. Might take 5 years, but 5-6 years ago, ZK was literally only in academic circles. Now we have young founders building things in ZK that might have taken researchers 10-15 years, UMAs and the likes. So I think it's awesome, and I think we're just at the beginning of the experimentation. I think we need more of it.
I think we're absolutely in the phase of experimentation. When we're talking to different chain operators, there's been very few times where we've heard from them, hey, I want this framework, this DA and this settlement, and have it be the same as the last company that we talked to. In my opinion, I think we're in the equivalent of the early days of the internet. It started off as just kind of Web 1 with just news articles, and now we're getting to this phase where you're having to have customizations and differentiation in order to stand out. I think these just general purpose chains where you're just launching like a base. It's not strong enough of a value prop unless you have a very engaging audience, good thriving community already that are willing to bridge that liquidity over. So I think we're going to see a lot more app-specific chains as we continue to grow. There's going to be a lot more customizations. There's going to be a lot more maturing in the space, and I think there's going to continue to be more of these integrations with different settlement layers at the framework level that are supported rather than non-supported, and then same goes for these different DA integrations. But it really comes down to the players who are continuing to push that, to drive that progress forward, which are the ones that are going to be integrated into the frameworks and are going to be a part of that new standard.
And then finally, we've seen at EthCC how we're at this sort of tipping point where all these big companies, fintechs, banks, just Web 2 companies are coming into a space, maybe launching their own rollups, maybe launching their own L1s. What role does data play in this, next few months, years, where the sector really kind of reaches a whole new level of mainstream adoption?
Yeah, I would say, look, we're all data infra here. I think our job basically this year is to help all these not crypto native companies come in and realize that they can actually build something pretty valuable, right? Otherwise, if they were to do everything on their own, if they were to build like, their own indexing layer, own like RPC, like data, like whatever, like that would take them so long. So what we're saying is like, look, we've spent like years basically trying to build this up ourselves. It's really, really hard, but you can actually use what we've built, and now you can build something this year in crypto, right? The whole goal again is to grow the pie, right? If we make it really easy for them from their first time ever to build a new app, a new product, a new stablecoin, whatever, then that's how next year they'll come back and build yet another products.
Yeah, and I'd say, because I was at Goldman for 7 years, when I was there, I knew the digital asset team really well because I was a total degen and I just was like a fanboy trying to deal with them as much as possible. There were 5 people on the team. Now there's like 80, 90, 100 people. That's a half a decade. Even more for JP Morgan. And so people are getting interested in this space in a big way. Props to Tether for being so insanely profitable that everyone wants to build a stablecoin. That is the red pill, even though it's a centralized stablecoin for most parts, and they take all the interest and they don't give it back to people. It doesn't matter. Like the red pill, everyone has a red pill moment. It could have been finance, it could have been philosophy. It doesn't matter what it is. When you have the red pill moment, you see how effective this technology is, how much better it is for financial markets alone. If finance were rebuilt on crypto rails, it doesn't matter how the underlying, decentralized, centralized, they're going to be centralized maxis because they're going to want to control everything. But that's just a small red pill every few weeks until eventually maybe it really becomes our dream of overtaking and making the world a better place. Transparent, visible, unbreakable, true ownership. Because right now that's not the case. It's not even fully the case in crypto. Things can be broken. But it's awesome. And I didn't think it would happen so fast. I didn't think all these bakes would be doing this fast. I didn't think all these stablecoins would be happening this fast. And it's awesome for me to see, but I still think we have a very long way to go. A decade probably until we see real mass adoption. The ETFs are good, but it's getting people interested with money in the line, with skin in the game. You pay more attention. You look at the underlying technology. That's when you see the beauty of it. And it's really hard to go back once you see the actual beauty of what we're doing.
I think our role would be like mainly to be enablers, as allowing companies to come in, build new products, build new ideas, new use cases to crypto. And I think that we are in a strategic position for that, and that we should build on top of each other and not just everyone start from scratch. And I think that also one of main Dune proposition is the transparency. So we put out the data there for everyone to consume, to validate, and to be able to kind of build in the openness and kind of the cool thing of blockchain is that the data is there, is public. Of course, it's not easy to consume, as we all know. But I think we are doing a great job to enable the top of the funnel, which are like our analysts and our wizards, to surface this data out to the masses. And thanks to transparency, we can also prove that there are real use cases, there are real applications that work, and that we can keep growing as an industry.
I think data plays a really important role when it comes to these Web 2 companies moving into Web 3, right? It comes down to, are you a build versus buy shop? Most of the Web 2 companies going to the Web 3 space are not going to want to build out their own indexer or have their own way of querying on-chain data or building their own way of solidifying that data for the transactions that happen on-chain. And to kind of go off of what you said before, like they're looking for these partners in the space that know what they're doing, that have a good understanding of how to handle the complexities with all the advancements that are happening in Web3 space. So I think the more that we're able to help them with that kind of transition over, the better it'll be overall. But the transparency of it, having data immutable, having it on chain, having it transparent across the board, that's a reason why I think a lot of these companies are wanting to get into the space in the first place.
Rook, if I can ask a question, I'd love your opinions. Do you think all these companies will be building on private blockchains or public blockchains like Ethereum?
I think it's a combination. If you look at, there's companies that are wanting to do supply management. I don't think that they're going to want to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's really a huge need for them to have a public ledger with a Etherscan block explorer to see where everything's are going. So they're going to keep it permissioned so that only certain people have the authority to be able to write on chain. But I think there is also use case for public blockchains as well, especially when it comes to the payments for payments applications. If only some people are able to send transactions to that, it kind of defeats the purpose. But if you have it where it's permissionless, people are able to send transactions as they need to. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities.
I would actually, I actually think most of the Web2 companies will probably go private by default until they can see value in public. And I think that value is going to be hard for them to find early on, unless it's like their partner can interact with their chain. But at that point, their partner could also interact on their private blockchain too. So I would actually take maybe like the opposite thing. I would say it's going to be private by default, and maybe in years down the line, they will go more public.
I actually disagree. I think that already happened. Companies have been building private blockchains since 2018. All of those experiments have pretty much failed. And I think they're realizing that to actually get value from blockchain, they need to make it public. Like JP Morgan is the prime example for that with Onyx. They're now building in like public Ethereum. And I think the way to do it for companies will be to use these customizable rollups or layer ones where they can actually KYC, so they can have the best of both worlds, like with supply chain. They've tried to make like private supply chains happen, and it's never worked. So I think like the next time they try it, it'll just have to be on a public blockchain, and it hasn't worked because they can't coordinate. Like you actually need a public blockchain for something like that to work, and I think they're coming around to that idea.
And I also think it could be both, meaning it's all about distribution, and especially for a bank, they're a public company. They have a fiduciary obligation, legal obligation to maximize shareholder value, and so they have distribution to all their clients. Would they want to enable them to go somewhere else? They would probably want to keep them in their little private walled garden. But to have distribution to the entire world, you have to use a public blockchain. Otherwise, you're going to spend a massive amount of marketing, and you're probably going to lose anyway. And so if you put it on a public blockchain, it gives you access to the entire world. And so, as long as the incentive's there, I think it's going to happen. I think it could be both. Hopefully, they all end up building in the public. I doubt it's going to happen in our lifetimes, but yeah.
All right, we need to start wrapping up. Great panel. I think what the consensus I got is that we're in an experimentation phase. We'll continue seeing more and more options for all of the layers of the stack. We are also about to get a new kind of wave of adoption, and obviously data and infrastructure will be the enabler of this to make transparent and public blockchains even more transparent. So thanks to all the panelists. This was great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Question.
Merci beaucoup. Please, guys, thank you for your conference. I am not keen on crypto. I am following it till 20 years ago. I've been the one following Nakamoto and this, but I never been in touch with. I'm just asking you now, today, how do you feel? How are you comfortable with safety, security, and non-hacking.
Yeah, when it comes to security at QuickNode, I feel like we're in a pretty good state. We're one of the only providers that offers SOC 1 and SOC 2 Type 2, as well as ISO 27001 certifications for all the products that we offer. And we have we have a specific security council that's internal to QuickNode for all the advancements that we have coming up.
For me, it's a quick no. I'm not comfortable, and I like that because bridges, they're 3 of 5 multi-sigs, 8 of 11, and they're moving a massive amount of money that we shouldn't be there. Everything is too centralized, for my opinion. It's not fully unbreakable. And I like being uncomfortable because it makes me angry and want to push and make sure people keep pushing. I don't think this will ever, just like the internet, I don't think this will ever stop moving forward, and that's a good thing. We will constantly innovate. We can't do it overnight. We're underestimating what we could do in 10 years and overestimating what we could do in a year. But as long as we're all just pissed and moving forward and trying to disrupt the world, I think that's the best place we could be.
First, I think we have general good company security policies, but I think what you're asking is like from a product perspective, how do I feel about security? This is actually one of the reasons why I love working in blockchain. Like we do indexing on fully public data. There is no data for us to leak. It's already been leaked. So that's our take on it from an indexing perspective.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great rest-